Hello guys, welcome to episode 72 of the Beat Your Backlog Podcast, a podcast discussing the things gamers like to put off, get to another day, and oh yes, will definitely beat later, their backlog. I'm your host Adam, and today we are talking about probably the first indie game hidden gem I've played this year, on the Nintendo Switch at least, and that game is And Roger. And it's really not often that I go into a game completely blind and have no idea what it's about. However, after hearing Greg Miller talk about a short indie game called And Roger, which I'm going to say it now, I think this is a terrible name for a game. I don't know why they called it. Like, Googling it, writing a review about it just makes it really hard. Very bad name, but it is a very good game, as we'll discuss. But yeah, Greg talks about it on the kind of Funny Games Daily podcast. And the one thing that he said was that it is a narrative game and only looks to be about an hour to beat. And that was all I really needed to get me in. Plus the price point of €4.99 in euros on the Nintendo Switch really sweetened the deal, because I really like when developers make short games, because I really feel like stories can be told in an hour or an hour or two. Obviously the biggest comparison is movies. Most movies are about 2 hours long and they tell a very in-depth story, and I wish games would do that more often too, because I just don't have times for 20 to 30 to 50 to 100 hour long stories as much as I would like to. So I like breaking up bigger games. Right now I'm still playing Donkey Kong Bonanza. I like breaking them up with these smaller titles, because then I can play them, review them quickly, and then get episodes out about them. So what is And Roger? Is it worth your time to play, and how scary is it? Let's find out in my And Roger Nintendo Switch review. And yeah, the game is developed by a company called Teary Hand Studio and published by another company called Kondasha, they're both, I think, Japanese studios. And it was released quite recently. I'm recording this in the middle of August. It was released on the 23rd of July 2025. And at the time of recording, it doesn't have enough reviews to get a Metacritic score. However, because of the word of mouth around this game, I expect a few more reviewers to check the game out soon. The description of the game talks of a young girl waking up in her house, expecting to find her father sleeping on the sofa, but instead finds a mysterious stranger there. Calmly but directly trying to tell the little girl to take her medicine. Who is he and where is her dad? So I'm going to do this review a little bit differently than how I usually do reviews. Usually I start off with the story and then go into gameplay, sound, art, whatever. I'm actually going to leave the story to the very end, like in the spoiler section, because this is more or less what the game is about. That's the whole sort of USP of the game, is its story. So I will talk about it briefly first, and then I will go into full spoilers at the end. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can listen to it, and then I will say at the end where the spoilers are, and then maybe go off, play the game, come back and listen to my spoilers, and then you can kind of make up your own decision on if I'm correct or what you think about my opinion. But yeah, just so you know, so I will go into full spoilers, but it will be at the very, very end of the episode. So talking about it in a very broad strokes, I think the story is really, really good. It starts out creepy and remains pretty uncomfortable throughout, with an ending that feels very bittersweet. I would say it reveals its hook a little bit too early on in the game, and by doing so, it loses some of the suspense the game is trying to build. I think that it could have let me stew in the creepiness of waking up with a stranger in your house a little bit longer. But nevertheless, the game does an excellent job of portraying its main topic, which I do not think we have seen really other games try to do, like specifically talk about this topic. And by doing this and showing the main character Sophia's perspective, the way she views the world around her, the game becomes scary in a much less conventional way. If you have ever played a game called Florence, which is a fantastic indie game on the Switch, and I think it's on every other platform, including mobile, much of the gameplay surrounding And Roger is pretty much the same as that. The gameplay is very simplistic and looks to have been designed predominantly for a computer mouse or mobile phone screen, but nevertheless works really well on the Switch. With you moving the cursor on the screen, you move that around with the left joystick, and it's very much like click, drag and drop gameplay, so very, very simple. And what you do is you are clicking or dragging dots across a screen, and you might then have to drag the dot to around a maze to get to a key or something like that, or you are just like pressing buttons on, let's say, like a telephone. You're just pressing the dots to ring the telephone. It's very simplistic, very easy, very like there's not even really any tutorial. It's just like you have the dot, and all you can really do is click it or hold down the click and move it, and then you learn quickly what you're supposed to do. And yeah, I like it. It's simple, but the control scheme feels very quick. It's very responsive, and importantly, it doesn't get in the way of the game's story. And then going on a little bit to talk about the art of the game. So the art of this game looks very, very, very gorgeous. Everything feels very hand-drawn, or is hand-drawn, I should say, or at least made to look hand-drawn, with very clean, stylish animations and bursts of colour that make significant parts of the story stand out and be memorable. A lot of the game is just in sort of monotone, where it might be just like a purple background with black line work. But then, important points in the story, which the game wants you to remember, it gets into bright colors. The animation is very cool. Like it's very, again, like hand drawn. Like it feels like one of these, these flip book animations where on each page there's a different drawing, and you flip through it, and that's how the game sort of looks. And I think I really like how it's sort of presented almost like a comic book. So the story is presented in panels, which you then scroll through. But then again, at kind of memorable points, the game breaks out of these panels. So there's one part where you are walking and you just see footsteps, and it starts off in a panel, but then the footsteps will leave the panel and move around, and the camera sort of follows it around the page, like the page in quotation marks. And it's just like a very well presented game, very pretty to look at, great animation, great sound design too. A lot of it is you are hearing like the sound of your heart pumping in your ears. So I would say this is one that's really good to play with headphones, and it feels very, very intense in the scarier moments of the game, like really making my real life hairs on my arms stand on end. And it's music is also great. Like when you think of like a low budget indie game, you think, oh, maybe this is where they might save some budget is on the music, but no, I was surprised how good it sounded for a game with such a small scope, almost sounding like orchestral music, like that they hired like some smaller orchestra to play it. And again, it just has points where the music can be very atmospheric. Or the sound, I should say, is very atmospheric. But then there are bits in the story where it wants you to have these sort of peaks of like emotion, and the music picks up and becomes sort of whimsical and happy or sad or tense or exciting, and it really just shows that, like, I'm glad that even though the game is a smaller budget game, that they definitely didn't sort of cut back on the sound design, because the sound design is great, and I think it really, really like elevates the whole feeling of the game and the whole quality of the game. And another important thing, which if you listen to episode 70 about 2 a T, they also do this sort of bumbly text speech, but they actually use it like it's way more like how they do it in Animal Crossing, where it's sort of like whereas in 2 a T they were just using phrases over and over again. So even though it has this bumble to text speech, which I really don't enjoy in games, in this game it wasn't annoying. It just kind of fell into the main background sound. It's like if you've ever played Undertale or Deltarune as well, it's sort of like that, which I enjoyed. It didn't feel very distracting. And yeah, and that's basically the review, because like I said, the story is the main part of the review. But it's a short game. Like this episode is going to be a short episode, obviously, because the game is only an hour long, and I don't really want to talk an hour about an hour long game. But yeah, we'll get into the story spoilers in a little bit. But to summarize and to answer the question, should you play And Roger? To summarize before we get into the story, And Roger is a hard game to review and score. The game is a must-play because of its story, gorgeous art, and amazing sound design. I do not think it quite sticks the landing of the twist in the story, but by the end of the game, I was riveted to see what happened between Sophia and her dad. The gameplay is simple, with drag and drop mechanics that sees you sneaking around furniture to get away from the stranger in your house, and doing something as simple as washing your hands in the sink. For some, the gameplay might be too simple. Honestly, And Roger could have just been a visual novel where clicking A progresses the story. Nevertheless, I think the gameplay, though minimalist, makes the game feel tense at certain story points. For example, when you're trying to click buttons to open doors or call the police while you are being pursued or hunted down by your stranger. Finally, another reason I would consider the game a must-play is its price and the time it takes to beat. €4.99 is a bargain for this game, and if you are a busy gamer with not much time on your hands, it can be beaten in less than 2 hours, so there is no excuse not to play it. Be sure to check out And Roger. It seems to have gone under the radar, but this is a great game that tells a poignant and meaningful story that will make you think about it long after you have finished. So that has been my review. It is a must-play for me. it's sort of split up into two parts because I do think the story is really good and the gameplay itself is a little bit, it's like serviceable. It's there to give you something to do, but it's like it's nothing amazing, but it doesn't need to be because it just needs to get you through the stories. And it was a hard one to review because I was thinking of like basically I've given it an 8 out of 10 on my written review. And I was like, currently, like I said before, I'm playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I'm at like the same point with Donkey Kong Bonanza where I'm like, okay, this also feels like an 8 out of 10. And I was like, well, is Donkey Kong Bonanza the same as this game? And I was like, well, obviously not. Like, they're completely different games. So like the review and the review score is like what this game meant to me at the time of playing it, with all of the context around it about like, yeah, its scope, how much it costs, how good the story is. So that's why I landed on an 8, because I do think it's a great 8 for me is great. I think it's a great game. 9 is amazing. 10 is a masterpiece. I don't think it's a 9 or a 10 like Greg Miller, I think, gave it a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's that good, but it is a very, very good game. And like I said, if you are someone like me that has a job, has a kid, has a wife, has hobbies outside of video games, and you just want something to be played in a sort of one and done session with meaning, with like something that will make you think, then definitely check out Anne Roger. It's also on Steam. I think it's even cheaper on Steam. It's like $3.99 for some reason. I guess Switch players have to pay the Switch tax. But yeah, so from this point on in the podcast, this will be full spoilers for the story. That's a warning. There will be full spoilers from the story. So if you haven't played the game yet, please do pause the podcast. Make sure you review us with 5 stars. Go and buy the game, play it, and then come back and listen to the ending because, I'd like to hear what other people who have played the game, what their perspective on the game is. So full spoilers right now. Okay, so Anne Roger is not, like I said, it's not necessarily a horror game in the sense you might think, with the context of you are this little girl waking up in a house and there is a stranger there who is trying to force feed you medicine. But it is definitely, like I said, it's scary in a much more realistic way than like a monster jumping out to scare you. So the twist in the story is, ... like drum roll, you're not actually a young girl at home looking for your father, but you are an old lady with either Alzheimer's or dementia, and the person who is a stranger in your house is actually your husband. Your husband... the part of the game shows you your wedding day, and you both make this pledge on your wedding to stick by each other in sickness and in health, through the good times and the bad. And it seems that you are quite a religious couple. Like there's a lot of times where the story sort of tells about like how often you're praying and you're praying for health and whatever, because that was one of my things thinking about it. Is like, oh God, how going through this story, how has he managed to stay with her for this long? Because it seems that this is a pretty severe case of Alzheimer's or dementia, and it kind of answers that by saying that like he made this pledge to her on her wedding day, that even through sickness and through health, through the good times and the bad, he would stick with her. So like I thought that was really, really like a touching way, and like I like that it answered the question I had really before I even had the question. So your husband has become your chief carer, and he is unsurprisingly called Roger, and he has been looking after you as you slowly spiral into a state where you can no longer recognize or really remember him and cannot understand the events that are happening around you. So there is a lot of, the whole game is full of it. It's not just like one specific instance, but for an example, some of the game's mechanics revolve around you doing everyday tasks like brushing your teeth or washing your hands. And what will happen is like 3 buttons will appear on the screen, and button A will be to brush your teeth. Button A will be to turn on the tap. Button B will be to put your toothbrush under the tap and then brush your teeth. And button C will be for you to rinse your mouth out. And there's no A, B, or C written on the buttons. They all look the same. So when you first start this little mini game, you just press a button randomly to see what it does, and it might be like, this is the one that rinses your mouth out. And you're like, okay, so I know that this one should be at the end of the sequence. But as the player experimenting with what the buttons do, it's starting to make Sophia, who is the person actually doing it in the game, become more and more panicked because she obviously doesn't know what she's supposed to do. And it really does this amazing job of portraying that she is in this situation where she knows what she should do, she just can't remember how to do it. And the panic is her realizing that like, oh, I should know how to do this, but I can't. And the more that you as a player do it wrong, the more panic she gets. And every time you do it wrong, it basically adds more buttons to the screen. So if you're not paying attention, you forget like, which one was the button to rinse out the mouth again? Because now there'll be, instead of 3, there'll be 10 buttons there. And each one you press makes Sophia more and more panicked, which adds more and more buttons to you, which makes it harder for you to do it right, which gets her more and more panicked. So it's just like a really clever way of portraying that, like, such a simple task that only has 3 steps, how someone with one of these diseases can, get it wrong, and every time that they get it wrong, they can't put the process to get the correct process together in their mind, and every time they get it wrong, it just makes them more panic, which makes it worse and worse and worse, and just ends up in a spiral where they can't do this at all anymore. And like I said, it's not just this example. There's another one where they do it with drying your hands. There's one where, like I said, the stranger, aka your husband, is looking for you in the house, and you run to a phone and try to dial 911, and even just doing that is like very difficult because you can't remember which numbers you're supposed to dial and where they are. There's another one, also opening a door, which is the same thing. Like you have a button to put the key in the door, a button to turn the key, I think, and then another button to open it, and it's just like you end up dropping the key and then having to pick the key up, and again, it's just something so simple and mundane of a task, but it just is portrayed so well of like how it is to to have one of these diseases. And I think the game does an amazing job of what it must be like the feeling of lack of control, panic, and sadness of not knowing what you're supposed to do, but knowing that you should know what you're supposed to do is eerily relatable. And it really makes me think about, because I think everyone has someone they know who has dementia or Alzheimer's, and how it can be a bit of a tendency, I think, to roll your eyes at these people that okay, maybe they're telling you the same story over and over again, or they're doing sort of childish things, and you sort of roll your eyes and be like, come on, you're not back in your childhood, you're not doing this, and have a tendency to just be like, they're talking rubbish and or acting childish. And after playing this game, I don't think I'll ever do that again, because the game does such a good job of just showing you what it must be like to not know what you're doing. There are also instances where Sophia is at breakfast and she'll be eating breakfast, and then the game changes, and then it's lunch, it's dinner time. And she'll ask, "Oh, can I have some more cereal?" And her husband's like, "What do you mean? Can you have some more cereal? It's dinner. We're eating soup now." And she's like, "Oh, what? What do you mean it's dinner? No, it was breakfast." He's like, "No, it's dinner time now." And also these things of just like skipping time and not really knowing where you are or what is happening around you. It just does such a good job of that, and that's what I mean. It's scary in a sense of imagine what it must be like not to recognize your significant other, or even the home you've lived in or grown up in your entire life, or not being able to do your favorite things anymore, like cook or read or play video games, and not realize that you cannot do them as you were trying to do them. There's lots of instances where Sophia might be kind of not back to normal, and there's one where she's cooking soup, and you're cooking it, and then all of a sudden the soup is on the floor and it's all over your husband, and you're blaming your husband for dropping the soup, and he's like, just calm down, everything's fine, I'll clean it up. And she's like, no, I want you to apologize for dropping the soup. And he keeps being very evasive and I it's fine, let me just clean it up. And then he's like, well, she's like, well, why won't you apologize? And he's like, well, because I didn't drop the soup. And she's like, of course you did. And they have this back and forth of she just doesn't realize that it was her who dropped the soup. And that these sort of these episodes can just come and go so quickly that one minute she's completely fine, and the next minute she just can't remember what's happening or doesn't know what's happening around her. So I think it does an extremely good job of portraying this and making you think it's definitely scary, because what if this happens to me or happens to someone that is really close with me? And that's the scary thing about it. And also the ending, I guess I spoiled everything, but the ending is great as well, where they have this one-to-one where they're talking, and Sophia is in a good state of mind where she kind of understands what Roger is saying, and they're just talking about it, and it's where Roger explains that the reason that he stayed with her is because obviously he loves her, and he promised that he would stay with her through sickness and in health. And then he also tells her that, like, yeah, he's hit her 4 times in their relationship since she's had this disease, because he gets so frustrated with her not taking the medicine or not wanting to take the medicine, and thinking in her head that he is a stranger who's trying to force it on her. And it's just this really sad, like I said, very bittersweet moment where the ending is sort of, yeah, it's bittersweet. Like, it's happy that they are having this conversation, but you know that this poor guy has gone through so much and is still stuck by his wife after everything, and that you can kind of understand that obviously he shouldn't hit his wife, but in that situation you can understand why he would do that. So it's a great game. Like, it's not a game anything I've ever experienced before. It's really sad that it's been just sort of come and gone. I'm really glad Greg Miller brought it up, and it was also, I can't remember her name, but it's the woman who did P.S. I Love You with Janet Garcia. I think she passed it on to Greg as like a game that he should play. So so cool that I heard about it. Like I said, I think I've noticed it popping up on my social media that people have been checking it out. So I think hopefully it will get a bit of momentum behind it. I really hope you, if you're listening, check out this game. I'll definitely be posting about it on social media as well, and in the Discord, and trying to convince people to play it and discuss it, because I think it is such an amazing topic to discuss, which isn't necessarily discussed that often in gaming circles. But yeah, definitely go and check it out. It's amazing, and like I said, I finished it probably a week ago at the time of this recording, and still every day I'm thinking about like the story and what happened. So definitely check it out. But yeah, guys, so that has been episode 72, a bit of a short one. I realized at the beginning of the episode I forgot to shout out my Patreon, so I will do that now. If you've enjoyed the episode, please do go to patreon.com/Beat Your Backlog and pledge at the $2 or $5 tier. If you do, you will get this episode 24 hours before everyone else. There's also on there the Beat Your Bonus podcast, which is a series of bonus podcasts just for patrons. You don't get to listen to them if you are a paid Patreon member. So do check those out. I think there'll be 7 or 8 episodes up now. The latest one will be an episode about me going through my physical game collection. If you're into physical games, do check that one out. And tell me what games you have. And also on Patreon, there will be a full written review of this game of And Roger and all of the other games that I cover on the podcast. I do still think like written reviews have a place in video game media. I enjoy writing them. Like, it helps me sort of formulate my ideas, and then I use that as sort of the structure for the podcast. So if you are a person that enjoys reading written reviews, do make sure you go and check that out too. And like I kidded at before, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you leave a 5-star review on the podcast, because that helps new people find us because of the algorithm and blah, 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 blah. So if you could do that for me, wherever you're listening, please leave us a 5-star review. And please do go and play And Roger, and let me know on social media, on Blue Sky, or come and join the Beat Your Backlog Discord, and let me know what you thought about the game. So thanks so much for listening, guys. I hope you have a great day. Bye bye.